Welcome back, tyrants and newcomers alike, to another episode of Apollo Justice. Last time Phoenix Wright took the stand. Yes, Phoenix Wright of all people. Could be the killer in this case. We don't know. Now we're gonna talk to Olga, figure out what the freak is going on. Okay, so the victim plays with his hand on his locket at his neck, but there's no locket in this photo. Objection. You know, there was one curious part in her testimony, just like Mr. Gavin said. But what does it mean? Mr. Justice, would you care to explain what it is you're thinking so intensely about? Recall the testimony, Your Honor. The victim played with his hand on locket at his neck, I believe she said.
I hope you aren't going to raise an objection to the witness's grammar.
No, but look at this photograph. Do you see a locket on the victim's neck? Oh, burn!
Well done, Justice. I'm impressed. I knew you'll be able to handle this.
But what does it mean? If we are to believe this witness's testimony as is, then the locket disappeared following the victim's death. Lockets don't just disappear, Your Honor.
It's quite simple when you think about it. If the locket is gone, someone must have taken it off. No?
Taking it off? Wait, you don't mean...
The defendant wasn't strangling the victim at all. He was taking off the locket. Wouldn't that explain it?
Ah! Defendant, what do you have to say to this? Say.
Yes?
I just noticed this, but, you have something hanging around your neck, don't you?
Oh, you mean this? Yes, it's a locket, with a photograph inside. A photo of my daughter.
Come again? Mr. Wright, you have a daughter? Yeah, are you even old enough to have a daughter? And who did you have a daughter with, is the question.
We confirmed it at the time of the arrest. The picture in the locket is indeed Mr. Wright's daughter.
So, Mr. Wright has a locket too? Why don't I buy this is just a coincidence? Well now, if the results of the poker game led to the murder, perhaps we should hear a bit more about the outcome of the game.
Further testimony won't really be necessary. It's clear the defendant lost badly.
Miss O'Reilly, you will testify to the court about the game played between the victim and the defendant. Plot thickens. Crap. Witness testimony. Serious competition.
The game began with 3,500 points in chips for each man. House chips come in two sizes, small and large. The one who is winning, it was victim. For last hand, defendant played with all chips on table and lose. The moment loss was decided, defendant grabbed bottle from table and...
Indeed. Looking at this picture, it does seem to be a one-sided game.
As the court knows, poker was the defendant's life. Failure must have been a bitter pill to swallow.
Ah. How many times have I heard these words? I done it in a fit of anger, Your Honor, and now I regret what I've done. Herpa-derpa-dervin. A common tale but true. Methinks the judge watches too many old court movies. Mr. Wright said he hasn't lost in 7 years, so this testimony must be wrong. Serious competition. Alright, what do you got, O'Reilly? The game began with 3,500 points in chips. House chips come in two sizes, small and large. Let's press. Are the chips in this photo all the chips that were used?
Of course.
Something's fishy with these chips. Should I press harder? Yes. Maybe you could explain a bit about these chips.
Explain? What is there to be explained?
No objection! Poker chips are poker chips. And they're not fish and chips. Not a chip off the old block. Not a motorcycle cop. Not a...
Thanks. And now that I pressed her, I better ask something. What are these chips worth? Are they in dollars or rubles even?
Yet, as I was saying before, it was a game, not gambling. Hard perhaps for police to understand. Two types of chips, 100-point chips and 1,000-point chips. It is not money, da.
Justice.
Sir!
Don't you find her comment interesting?
In more ways than one, sir.
I'd have it added to her testimony myself.
Well, does the defense want the witness to add to her testimony? Yes, please. Yes, I do think this deserves further scrutiny. Added to the testimony. I wish I knew where I was going with this. Very well. Witness, if you would be so kind.
Your Honor.
One kind of chip is worth 100 points, other kind worth 1,000, two kinds in all. Well, let's see here. Let's take a look at this chip photo. And I win. You're sure it was the victim who won? Absolutely sure.
Objection! It seems our new attorney is a bit confused. At a glance at the picture is enough to tell you who won if you're not in kindergarten.
Just for safety's sake, could you explain the problem to the court? The beard never passed kindergarten. Of course, Your Honor. In this photo, I see small chips and I see large chips. Tell me, which were worth Tell me, which were worth 1,000 points?
Why, the big ones, of course. Duh!
Oh, I thought so too, but then the totals don't add up.
The totals?
Let's review what the witness told us. Each man started with 3,500 points in chips, and the combined total value of the chips was 7,000 points. Yes, if my calculations are correct, let's see, 3 plus 1 carry the 5. They are, Your Honor. Now, look at this photo that allegedly shows all the chips. If the big chips are worth 1,000 points and the small chips are worth 100, and you add them up...
How much is it?
Do it yourself. You aren't in kindergarten, are you? 10,600 points. The chips don't add up. This clearly contradicts the witness testimony.
But why? How could this be?
Exactly, Justice. Now you know the what, you must determine the why.
Right. There's only one possible way to explain this contradiction. Starting points, chip counts, both were right. Chip count was wrong. The odd thing here is the odd number of chips. Right, Mr. Gavin?
Why are you asking me?
Just in case?
Justice, it's your case I'm concerned about. If you're wondering about the chips, just look at the photograph. It's all there. Even our judge with his failing eyesight could count them.
That's not the only thing failing the judge. Well, let me ask you again, and don't insult the man or I will destroy you. Right, there's only one possible way to explain this contradiction. Okay, fine. Starting points were wrong. This calculation makes the answer clear. If the total combined points on the table was 10,600, then each man started the night with 5,300 points. 5,300? The beard hates math. That's a rather half-baked score in which to start a game.
Justice, would different starting points really change anything?
Eh? It seems the defense's objection was even more half-baked than the score. Uh-oh. Time to head back into the kitchen. Make myself a sandwich. Right. There's only one possible way to explain this contradiction. Wow, I was wrong twice. Glad I didn't get penalties. Both were right. Each man began the game with 3,500 points. If all the chips are indeed shown in this photograph, then there can only be one answer. Well, what is it? The value of the chips was the other way around.
What?
Want to know what I think? The small chips were worth 1,000 points, not the big ones.
Madness! Utter madness!
Not madness. This is Sparta! Just kidding. Show me that photograph of the chips again. There are 6 small chips and 10 large chips. Why, that does make 7,000 points when you add them up.
Excellent work, Justice. It's almost as though you figured it out yourself.
Oh, I did figure it out by myself, Kristoph. Well, I'm just glad I was the one who said it.
Objection! But wait! The value of the chips may be different, but that changes nothing!
Indeed. The victim did have the large number of chips still. Ah! Exactly. If the small chips are 1,000 points and the large chips are 100, let's do a little math. Add up the points for each side of the table. The victim, Mr. Smith, had 2,900 points and the defendant had 4,100 points. Well now, it seems that Mr. Wright was winning that night after all.
That's impossible!
My client had even less reason to kill the victim. After all, he was winning! Now, Miss O'Reilly, you must have known the true value of the chips. Since you were there at the scene of the crime, weren't you? Order, order! The beard will destroy you all. It appears our defendant has lost his motive. And Mr. Wright's supposed defeat never happened. We must now ask ourselves whether we can trust the witness's testimony. Who dares object the beard? Excuse me? What is it, Miss O'Reilly? If you object the beard again, the beard will destroy you and explode your house.
I did not want to be saying this, but actually, you see,
See what, Mrs. Orly? What do we see?
in last hand, there was cheat.
A cheat? You don't mean a trick?
Wait, do you mean a scam? They're all the same thing.
Yes, there was cheat in last hand. That is why game ends with chips as they are.
Great, just great. First we have lying, now cheating.
Well, this case certainly has taken a turn. For the interesting.
Witness, you will please testify to the court. Tell us about this cheating in the final hand.
The last hand, both men had.
Full house, and there's 4 of each card in deck from ace to king.
If you look at both men's hands, it is most obvious. The next moment, game became argument. A defendant's trick was exposed. He took bottle in hand. Poor Mr. Smith.
Miss O'Reilly, why did you not tell the court about this from the very beginning? I thought I smelled a cover-up here. Well, folks, it's time to throw back the covers. A full house is a very high-scoring hand. Not easy to make, in my experience.
That alone is enough to suspect less than scrupulous tactics.
Mr. Gavin, what's a full house?
Lawyers these days. You don't even know your poker?
Seriously, how do you not know what a freaking full house is? Fail, Apollo. Or can't say this bodes well for your case, or career. You're stupid, Apollo lol. What is this, some kind of secret court poker ring?
Justice, you know the terms 1 pair, 2 pair, and 3 of a kind, yes?
Those are all very good, especially when they're boobs. Yeah, no problem, I like boobs too. 2 cards with the same number makes a pair, and 3 makes a 3 of a kind.
Good. Now picture a hand with 1 pair and 1 with 3 of a kind. That's a full house.
That doesn't sound very easy to make, does it?
You can see each player's hands in this photo.
Wow, they both have full houses.
We forgot there's an easy way to make a full house, and you go undefeated for 7 years. You cheat.
The defense may cross-examine the witness. If he did cheat in the last hand, that still leaves one important question. Mr. Wright lost that hand. Who's ever heard of a professional con man losing when they cheat? The final hand. Last hand, both men had full house. There's 4 of each card in deck from ace to king. If you look at both men's hands, cheat is more obvious. Next moment, game becomes argument. The defendant's trick was exposed. He took bottle in his hand. Poor Mr. Smith. First she said it was a serious competition. Now she says there was cheating.
Justice, notice anything odd? Her testimony keeps changing. Now she says the defendant cheated.
Actually, yes, I had noticed that.
Let's get the truth about this cheating first, shall we?
Right, leave it to me. Okay, so both men had a full house. Let's take a look at the hands real quick. So, yeah, that is a full house. Those are both full houses, okay. Maybe we should press something. There's 4 of each here from ace to king. Let's press. 4 of each card, you say?
There is 1 spade, 1 diamond, 1 heart, and 1 club for each card. It is interesting that this number 4 come from number of seasons.
Huh? You don't say. Did you know that the cards are numbered 1 to 13? The beard is smart. Add all the cards in the deck and you get 364 a year! Yay! The bear just blew your mind! Huh? You don't say. Isn't that 1 day short?
And that's why each deck has 2 jokers. They say the second joker stands for the leap year, and thus, you have a perfect representation of the year, all in a deck of cards!
Okay, seriously, that just blew everybody's mind, I'm sure. Huh? You don't say. I didn't even know that. We're going to be in this courtroom for a year if it keeps going like this. Why is it more obvious? How was it clear?
Well, the defendant. He played the fifth ace.
A fifth ace?
I still remember both hands very well. Mr. Smith had 3 aces. And Mr. Wright 2.
Obviously, cheating was afoot, or perhaps should I say, a hand!
Your Honor, perhaps this can be added to the testimony without Mr. Payne's joke.
Without Mr. Payne's joke. Fail. Very well. The witness will add this detail to her testimony, please, without that lame-o's joke.
Mr. Smith's hand had 3 aces and Mr. Wright's 2. It is 5 aces in all.
Wait, shouldn't there be... How many aces are in a deck, is the question. Ha! I was correct. I knew there was something fishy about that. It appears the witness is mistaken.
Mistaken? What's my name?
Look, this piece of evidence clearly contradicts what you said in your testimony. That's the photo of the chips, is it not?
Justice, perhaps you ought to explain your point in a way that the judge can comprehend. In other
The
words,
bear is confused!
use your finger to point out your point.
Yes, please point out the contradiction in this photo, because the bear is confused! What particular point contradicts the witness's testimony? The fact that there's probably the aces, right? Let me see here. Whoa, lag. Miss O'Reilly, in your testimony you made the following claim. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces. But you can clearly see the victim's hand only had 2 aces!
Objection! Well, maybe the witness was simply confused. Perhaps it was the defendant's hand that held the 3rd ace in question.
Take another look at the evidence. As you can see, the defendant also had 2 aces in his hand. Where's this 5th ace? I see cheating, alright, and it's going to be right here in this courtroom. I totally read that wrong, but I don't care. 2 aces in each player's hand does make 4 aces total. Hardly proof of cheating.
Wait, please! It is true! I have seen it! The 5th ace! That was cheating! I swear to you!
That's odd. She must be lying, yet she's the most sincere I've seen her all day.
Ah, you're right to trust your instincts.
Mr. Gavin?
Who knows what lies in store for us in the trial ahead? Your Honor, if I may, I have a suggestion.
What might that be, Mr. Gavin?
If you don't mind, perhaps we might examine the actual cards?
The cards?
Mr. Payne,
Yes?
the player's hand that night was set aside as evidence, were they not? The defense would like to request the cards be shown to the court.
Very well, the prosecution will submit this evidence. Which will you examine? The victim's cards or the defendant's cards? These cards don't prove cheating was going on, nothing will. Now, which of these hands is more suspicious? I'm gonna say the victim's hand. It was the victim's hand that changed over the course of the witness's testimony. The defense requests time to examine Mr. Smith's cards. Very well. Mr. Payne, if you would.
Very well.
Received evidence, victim's hand.
Well, time's a wasting. Get to it, Justice.
Yes, sir.
When examining evidence, be sure to view it from all sides and angles. Try using the dials on the evidence viewer. That should give you a better perspective on the case.
Okay, let's do this. Time to examine some cards, motherfrigger. Yeah. Ooh, there's a blue card. Examine. Whoa, what? Your Honor, look at this. One of the victim's cards. The back is a different color.
That's impossible! But I put the card in Wright's hand. Ack!
What was that, Miss Orly?
No, I merely said,
Your Honor.
Mr. Gavin, yes?
Tell me what is the easiest way to cheat at poker?
To cheat?
I'll tell you. One merely needs a friend, a comrade, shall we say. The dealer!
Ah! Wait, so you mean... This witness, Miss O'Reilly.
She's the cheater, a professional, I'd wager.
Yeah.
Oh, snap! Order! Focus, Justice. Time to take advantage of her. Of her mistake. Bow chicka bow wow giggity goo. Oh, right. Your Honor, please recall the testimony we just heard. Ergo, Miss Olga really conspired to cheat not with my client, but with the victim, Mr. Shoddy Smith.
Oh,
Not only did she cheat, she cheated poorly. Therefore, it's not hard to imagine an altercation between her and the victim.
What?
Wait, you don't mean the defense isn't accusing the witness, Miss Olga, really? Are you? Time for justice. There were 3 people in the room at the time of the incident. And if Mr. Wright isn't guilty, that means I am. The defense accuses the witness, Miss Olga O'Reilly, of murder.
eek!
Holy crap, she fainted. Mr. Payne, where's your witness, Miss Olga O'Reilly?
It appears she has lost consciousness, Your Honor.
Mr. Justice, Your Honor, it seems you presented a new possibility to the court. One suggesting a connection between the witness and the victim, Mr. Smith. And that means this court cannot pronounce a verdict for the defendant at this time.
What?
I did it! I held out! Yay! I see no point in prolonging the trial this day. The prosecution will need to make further inquiries.
Objection!
What the freak? Phoenix? Go away, Phoenix. Mr. Wright?
You can't end the trial here, Your Honor. Not yet.
What nonsense is the defendant spewing now?
Think. One of the cards has a different colored back. Don't you wonder what it means?
Objection! What are you doing, Mr. Wright? Raising objections right when you're about to get off the hook? Ridiculous!
Mr. Payne, you of all people should know. Mr. Wright has a talent for the ridiculous. Perhaps we should get to the bottom of things. Let's clear up the facts about the game that fateful night.
As was said before, we alternated between 2 decks of cards that night.
But that was said before!
The 2 decks at the club have different colored backs, blue and red. 1 color per deck.
Why use different colored backs?
If we use the same color, the 2 decks might get mixed.
You used different colors and they still got mixed up?
We used the red deck for the last game.
I see, but that's odd. For some reason, I have this impression that you were using the blue cards. Yeah, me too. I'm sure someone said something about blue cards.
Whatever. In the end, 1 card of the wrong color got in the mix. Which means there was cheating.
Yes, a card slipped into the deck would seem to indicate cheating. Yet, this card raises 2 serious questions. Apollo?
Yes?
Let's consider the first question, shall we? Think, in the last game, when was the card swapped?
When?
There are 3 broad possibilities here. It could have been swapped before the murder, during the murder, or after the murder.
Well, yeah, thanks for the news bulletin, Mr. Wright. Of course it was the swap.
Oh? It might be as simple as you think, Mr. Payne. Or it might not be. I'd like to hear what Apollo thinks first. When do you think the cards were swapped?
When was the card swapped into the deck? I'm gonna save state real quick in case I'm wrong and wager on after. Perhaps it happened after the murder?
No objection! What's that? Ridiculous! What's the point of cheating after the hand's already been shown? That's silly!
Yes, but tell me, how do you swap cards during the game? I'll take silly over impossible.
Objection! Take it from me, son. There's lots of silly in this world, but very little impossible.
Oh? Even when the backs of the cards are a different color? If you pulled that during the game, you'd be caught in no time. Ah!
Quite true. That would mean that the blue card in question was swapped after the hands were shown, after the murder.
Good, so I was right.
Objection! Okay, this is going past silly. It's straight on to crazy. I ask again, what's the point of cheating after the game's over? Who would do that?
Who indeed? That's one of the mysteries before us.
Well, there's another.
Yes, a simple yet decisive question must be asked. Who swapped the red card for a blue card?
Who?
The game and murder is done. The victim is dead. Only 2 remain in the room. Alive, that is. The defendant, Phoenix Wright, and our witness, Olga Orly.
Okay, so who was it that swapped the red card for a blue? Olga, really, I think. Right? Save state. Why, it must have been Olga really who swapped the cards. She was trying to cover up evidence of the cheating. That does make some sense.
Hold it!
No?
Sorry. But there's a problem with that explanation.
Huh?
The swap card was from the wrong deck.
Yeah, so blue card was stuck into a red hand.
Mixing a card from the wrong deck when the backs are different colors? Remember that you're talking about Olga Orly. She was the dealer. Do you really think she would make such a novice mistake?
Actually, I have trouble imagining even the judge making that mistake.
Give it a little more thought, Apollo.
Right. Okay, so who was it that swapped the red card for a blue? Okay, it must have been someone else then. The one who swapped the cards wasn't Mr. Wright, of course. And, well, it doesn't seem like it could have been Olga O'Reilly either. What are you suggesting?
That's hardly a logical conclusion, I'll admit. As a defense, I think it only makes sense for you to name Miss Orly at this point.
Yes, I know. But she was the one who dealt the cards, right? I just can't believe she would make the mistake of swapping the wrong colored card. And if the card was swapped during the game, it'd be obvious. Something you'd like to share with the court, Mr. Wright?
Oh, my apologies, Your Honor. I was just thinking how much fun this all is.
Objection! Fun? How about confusing? I have no idea what the defense is claiming, Your Honor. If the one who swapped the card wasn't the defendant, and it wasn't Miss Orly, then who was it?
Yeah, well, that is the question, isn't it?
Precisely.
Huh?
I believe we're about to see this case take a new direction.
Not One Direction, that's a gay band. A new direction? The band doesn't like One Direction.
We'll find that indeed, after the murder, someone swapped the cards in the victim's hand. And that someone made 2 critical mistakes.
I'm sure you're going to tell us that the first was swapping the wrong color card.
Because the one who did the swap didn't know 2 colors of cards were being used. The other mistake was the number on the card.
Right. The person replaced the 5th ace with a king.
I'm sure whoever swapped it wasn't expect there to be a 5th ace after all. All they knew was that the game had been won with a full house. So they picked up a king from the table and swapped it in.
Objection! But there's one problem. According to our case record, this person doesn't exist.
True, not until now. But you have to admit the possibility of a 4th person. Though, it's more than a possibility. There was someone else there that night at the scene of the crime.
Oh, great. Another person? Lord, this must be the murderer.
What?
I believe the judge spoke truthfully earlier. You do make trials ridiculous, Mr. Wright.
This trial is proceeded on one central assumption. Namely, that at the time of the incident, there were only 3 people in that room.
I believe this new evidence, shall we say, overturns that assumption?
The problem is that you chose to conceal this information from the court, and the beard did not like that.
I suppose that is a problem, yes.
Court is adjourned for a brief recess. Mr. Gavin, I'll see you in my chambers during this recess. Bow chicka bow wow giggity goo.
Certainly, Your Honor.
Very well. The trial will resume in 20 minutes. And on that note, we're going to end the episode here. Rate, comment, subscribe, favorite, and see you guys on the next epic episode of Apollo Justice.